All right, all right, all right. This is the Wood Dog, and this is my segment, Just Keeping It Real. And because keeping it real is the only thing that I know how to do. Now, today, uh, I'm going to interview somebody real special and near dear to me. He's special and dear to his family, of course, and he's also was a dedicated servant to all the Wayne County Sheriff deputies with the Wayne County Sheriff's Department. This is Mr. Reginald Crawford. As you know, on my segment, you heard me talk. You've heard me talk a lot, and you all know about my videos. They're on this platform. This is my YouTube channel, Just Keeping It Real at Wood Dog 4868. Type that in the search engine, Just Keeping It Real at Wood Dog 4868. You can see all my videos in their chronological order. Okay, Mr. Crawford, it's been a pleasure, man. You a
Yes,
hard
sir.
man to track down, and I'm glad to have you here because I'm sure people want to hear a different perspective on what's going on with the status of the Wayne County Sheriff's Department. They want to know the status of yourself, and they also would like to know the status of the current Wayne County Sheriff's Department administration and what's been really wrong. And this is your opportunity and my opportunity as well to adjust and to address any issues that we have unrestricted. We're going to try to stick to our 30 minutes, but this is a hot subject here. And I've waited a long time to interview this man. He's an honorable man, he's a family man, and we're going to get right to it. Okay,
Well,
Mr.
yes,
Reginald Crawford, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
yes, sir. First and foremost, I'd like to thank you for the invite to your podcast of Keeping It Real,
Oh, thank you,
Corporal
sir. Thank
Corporal, Corporal Frank Wood, and I've watched
Retired.
retired, and also I'm retired.
Yeah.
My name is Reginald Crawford. I'm retired. Well, let me go back a little bit here. Retired Detroit police officer of 30 years. Also worked Atlanta PD for 5 years. Police commissioner, Detroit police commissioner for 4 years. That was a elected seat by the people. You know, I believe in democracy. It wasn't a selected seat. I wasn't appointed by anyone. It was the people who elected me to that seat of police commissioner. And a
Mm.
Wayne County deputy, uh, and well, retired as a corporal, 15 years of service with the Wayne County Sheriff's Department.
So you served
And
through three police departments.
yes, sir, 3 police departments. Uh, I don't call myself a retired police officer. Didn't call myself a police officer when I was. So what they call today in America's law enforcement police. It wasn't about being a police officer policing the community. I call myself a peace officer. You know, I came from a community that had a sense of community back in the 50s and the 60s where we cared about one another. And therefore, you know, oftentimes today when they talk about policing, they only use that word when they talk about policing the black community. They say police and policing the black
Mm-hmm.
community. Other communities, they talk about serving and protecting.
Mm.
So thus, I've always called myself a peace officer. And retired also from the Wayne County Sheriff's Office. I was the union president, president of the Wayne County Deputy Sheriff's
Mm-hmm.
Association union. I was the former president, retired as the president from that
Yeah,
union.
and I remember when you got elected to the Wayne County Sheriff Deputy Sheriff's Association, you were on one of the most vocal presidents that the Wayne County Sheriff has ever had, and you spent damn near every waking moment representing the union members of the department. I don't remember a union president of your caliber, except for Mr. Don. I think it was his name. Cox,
Cox, I
was it
believe it
Don
was. Yes,
Cox?
that was
He was our union.
before my
He
time.
was just like you.
Yes, sir.
He fought for his members. He didn't allow himself to be taken in the back room with deals made, whether it was internal discipline or anything like that with the unionized members. He fought for the members all the time, and you did the exact same thing. And the only thing that got you out of there was age. Is that
It was
correct?
yes, sir.
Yeah,
Age.
yeah,
I could have.
yeah.
Well, I'll get to that. How I became the president. But I want to say today that during my presidency, we built something. That executive board, my first vice president, Robin Hornbuckle, she was
Yes.
elected to her seat the same time I was elected to the seat of the presidency. Corporal Alan Cox came in a little bit later as the second vice president within, I think, a year of our or 9 months of our election, a special election. And it was the three, and then also that inclusive of that entire executive board, we built something. They're built for this today. Anything that comes up, and you talk about leadership. If you're in leadership and the leadership is compromised, that's nothing but sellout
I'm
leadership.
glad you
Once
said
that
that. I'm
leadership is
glad you said that,
compromised,
Mr. Crawford, because one of my first questions for you today is what is the current state of the Wayne County Sheriff's Department? And I want you to blend in how, when you first became the union president, what you was confronted with from the current Wayne County Sheriff's upper administration. We talking about
yes,
from the sheriff, his undersheriff, and his chief of jails or the director of jails. What were you confronted with that tested or they tried to test your integrity?
well, and the current state of the sheriff's department today is a mess. There's corruption. There's the acceptance of sexual harassment and abuse. And the most important thing is something that oftentimes that the current president of the union, who was then the second vice president of me, Corporal Alan Cox, used to state, it's how you treat people. That's what this is all about. It's a culture that exists today of corruption and mistreatment and disrespect of people, and particularly disrespect of women. And that's coming from the sheriff. That's coming from the executives of the Wayne County Sheriff's Office. And that's why I call some people dispute this oftentimes, but they can never really debate me on the issue because I know the history. I call it a labor plantation. It doesn't matter how much you pay people or where they work. It's how you treat people.
I remember when that phrase, the labor plantation, it was alleged that you were making reference to slavery, and that was not the case.
That's not the case.
That's not the case. The labor plantation, as I understood it, is people's rights are being disrespected. People are being overworked, overwhelmed, and there's no consideration for their health, safety, and welfare. That's what constitutes a labor plantation.
There are labor plantations all across America today. It's how
Mhm.
they don't pay you anything. They disrespect the people, and only a fool, and that's what I call Washington, Sheriff Washington, a fool at the time, uh, who lacked knowledge of self and lacked history of self and the community,
Mhm.
and as the plight of the enslaved Africans in America. When you go back and talk about what
Mhm.
happened in 1619, which he doesn't know, has no knowledge of, when with the
Mhm.
enslavement of Africans in America. And
Mhm.
Frederick Douglass, check the history, talked about when the so-called enslaved Africans were freed, that they were offered jobs on the
Mm.
various plantations and various jobs throughout America.
Mm.
And he stated then that this is nothing more than a labor plantation because of the lack of pay and
Yeah.
how people were still being
Now we do
treated.
know that this overwork, this institutionalized overtime is affecting recruiting. No matter how much they try to recruit in the last 2 or 3 years, they haven't been able to retain officers because of the forced mandatory overtime that just wears officers out. Uh, I myself, before I retired, I experienced that overtime. You reach your 56-hour union maximum, and they still try to order you over. We can go on and on about that. But I do want to take you back again, Mr. Crawford, to when you first made union president, um, how you were approached by management to see if you were
See,
willing to compromise your integrity.
yes, sir. Well, let me say this, brother. It was brothers like you and a number of other deputies and corporals in the Wayne County Sheriff's Department. There was a call for me to run for union president. I was really on my way working toward a retirement. I'd been on that police commission 4 years. I was going to run for reelection on the
So
police
you were
commission.
working on the Detroit Police Commission and you was a deputy
And the
sheriff at the
deputy
same
sheriff,
time.
yes, sir, yes,
Okay,
sir.
I
I was
got you.
elected to
Okay.
that seat every Thursday. That was my off days. I had off days of Wednesdays, Thursdays. Your off
Okay.
days rotate,
Oh,
so that meant every Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
right.
I had to work in order to work overtime for 4 years straight. I
Okay.
did that,
Okay.
but because and I chose those days because I was on that commission. I wanted to be off
Okay.
to attend those meetings.
All right.
So
Continuing.
the issue is, there was this call for me to run for union president. There was this call. There was this Crawford, and I said, no, I really, not too much interested. And they said, well, no, you're the type of person that we wanted. And this was the membership of the union. They said, well, you're the type of person we want, to run. I says, okay, here's the deal. I'll run but I'm only going to run. I'm a campaign. I'm gonna win, but it's only going to be for 4 years. Once that 4 years is up, I'm not running for election, for re-election. I'm
And
done.
you kept that promise.
And I kept that promise. That was that promise to the members
You
and
set
to
the
myself.
standard for
I
the
said
new
it.
president
But
coming
I
in behind
told
you.
them, you know, when I become the union president, I'm not cutting any deals. There's not going to be any backdoor, negotiations. There's not going to be any closed doors or go in the closet or under the table negotiations. I'm not going to tolerate that. I'm not going to tolerate any disrespect, from management of the members. And however, I didn't want the members to. I was going to tolerate any disrespect from the members of management. Told them that. So thus the campaign was on. This was the campaign.
Yes. Show me that, Mr.
This
Crawford.
is the campaign here. This is what I ran on. So 48 years of labor activism.
That's right.
48 years of union labor activism. 48 years. That goes from the Detroit Free Press as a paper boy to Chrysler, UAW. My parents was, my father was always
this is a
UAW.
pretty impressive Detroit Police Officer Association union activist, Atlanta police officer, worked in their union.
Yeah, no, we started the union.
You started the union in Atlanta.
We're down there. Former Detroit police officers laid off, went down there. We started a union in Atlanta.
Yeah, so you have a history of activism in the community. That's obvious. And I notice at the bottom here, this is very significant because I think this describes you to a T. A vote for integrity, transparency, accountability that is unbought and unbossed.
Yes,
that was him, because he was my union president before I retired. And I did over 30 years with the Sheriff's Department. And real briefly, I'll show you a plaque that was made for me about 15 years before I retired. This is me. So I am qualified to talk about the Wayne County Sheriff's Department. And if you look at this, you can see all the units that I've worked in the Sheriff's Department. Some of them on here are missing. Court security, Third Circuit Court, criminal court security, Third Circuit, Detroit Department of Transportation. That's when the Wayne County Sheriff Department took over the busing in the city of Detroit. City of Highland Park Patrol, when the city of Highland Park had to be taken over by us because the city of Highland Park was in receivership. I was on the street, and we dealt with many criminals that were embedded in that community. And there's a current person that I had to deal with on the regular, who's out here at this current time trying to get everybody kicked off election ballots, Mr. Robert Davis. Mr. Robert Davis was personally handled by me and my partner, and for his misconduct and they're driving around without a driver's license, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Secondary Road Patrol, where you get assigned to a different city throughout the county, the City of Inkster Patrol. And I can go on and on, but
you're talking about the Robert Davis that was convicted and went to federal prison for stealing the money from the Highland Park Park educational school system or some $200,000. That Mr. Robert Davis.
That Mr. Robert Davis.
That works for Sheriff Rafael Washington. He's his political hitman.
Yeah, and from what I hear, he was unsuccessful in trying to eliminate the candidate, the first female Wayne County Sheriff candidate seeking the office, Miss Joan Merriweather. The Third Circuit Court ruled that she is on the ballot, and we will talk about her shortly.
Now back to the history.
Back to the history.
Back to the history of this when I first became president.
When you first became president, I want you to explain how you was approached and how they tried to test your integrity when you became the union president.
Within 2 or 3 days after I was elected as the president of the union, I received a phone call from the Three Stooges. And the Three Stooges being current now, Sheriff Rafael Washington, he was a deputy chief then.
Okay.
Jafer, who's now the undersheriff, Mike Jafer, who's now the undersheriff, who was deputy chief.
Okay.
And Robert Dunlap, who's the chief of jails now. Now, all three of those, the Three Stooges, and Sheriff Benny Napoleon, we're all former Detroit police officers.
Right.
Retired from DPD. We're all former Detroit police officers. And the only one I consider with that had any integrity coming from DPD that was in the Sheriff's Department was Sheriff Benny Napoleon.
Yeah, I will agree with you, because I believe that even though we do know that Sheriff Benny Napoleon was a very loved person in this city, and he was a hard cookie to crack when it came to union issues, because sometimes you
Well,
win, sometimes you lose with him. But I've always said that no matter how Benny was, at least you could sit down and talk to the man.
and it was never personal. We disagreed. We went to arbitration on a number of issues that we won. The union won. Even
Hmm.
going back to my activism with Detroit Police Department, when Benny Napoleon was the chief,
Hmm.
became the chief. By the way, he became the chief because the truth, be known and told, is it was through some activism of black police officers. Myself and then Lieutenant Roosevelt Lawrence, we had a black police a group, called DAP, Detroit African American Police, and we did a lot of things uh, in front of the cameras, in front of people, and we did a lot of things behind the scenes too. That people like Sheriff Rafael Washington benefited from, Dunlap, and or
Hmm.
Chief of Jails Robert Dunlap and Mike Jafer. That came from the activism of a small
Hmm.
group of black police officers.
Right. And
Now,
I
let me say this: once I was elected as the Wayne County Deputy Sheriff, I received that call from the Three Stooges, and they were so elated that I was, former Detroit person or
they
with
thought
them.
that just
They
because you worked on the Detroit Police Department that you
that's
were going to side with them
that's what
against the union members that you were elected
they
to
said.
represent.
Now we're all Detroit is literally running the sheriff's department. I'm from Detroit. They're from Detroit, and now things are going to be all right because I'm the union president. And I explained to them, no, y'all got this twisted. Y'all have this twisted. I am the union president. I became the union president, but I'm going to represent my members. I'm going to represent the Wayne County deputies and corporals and everybody. And
Speak on it, Mr. Crawford. Speak
we're
on it,
going
sir.
to do what's right. When y'all violate that contract, I'm coming for you. We're coming for you. And that's what we did. But in that conversation, they said we could all go to Fishbones and have dinner or lunch. And I said, well, I don't know about that. Yeah. And they said, well, yeah, just us, the Detroit group, the four of us. And I said, no. I says, I tell you what, I'll sit down at Fishbones with you and have dinner or lunch. However, my first vice president, which was Miss Robin Hornbuckle, Corporal Robin
Who is the
Hornbuckle,
current vice
is
president
the
as
first
we
vice
speak?
president as we speak. She and I were elected together. And I said, if we're going to do lunch or dinner, Robin Hornbuckle's coming with us to the table. They said, oh, no, no, why would you want to do that? I said, let me tell you something. She's the first vice president. I don't go anywhere without her. I said, we're not doing any private meetings or backroom meetings without my first vice president sitting there. I said, Corporal Robin Hornbuckle's going everywhere with me, but to the men's restroom. They said,
Hmm.
oh, okay, we get it.
Do
So
you think a lot of that
we did
attitude
have
had? You think that a
that
lot of
lunch.
that had to do with Miss Robin Hornbuckle being a woman?
Uh, on the possibility, a little bit of that may have came into play, but basically it was about the Detroit Good Old Boys Network.
Hmm.
As if I was going to in some way compromise my integrity, my leadership, my character, and when it came down to negotiations or any union issues, simply because we all came from Detroit. It wasn't happening. I was not the sellout, going to be the sellout president.
Yeah, and everybody they kind of doubted you because they knew that you were a senior man in the department. They knew that you were approaching retirement, but I think you fooled everybody, including myself. I mean, I had no doubt that you're going to take care of business, but I had no doubt that you're going to take care of business the way you did.
Well,
And I think it was real big of you to make sure that your vice president was included in any discussion.
Well, and it even went beyond the vice president, the first vice president. It encompassed that entire executive board. I brought the executive board into the fold. We went to meetings. I requested, and of course, then Sheriff Benny Napoleon was accommodating with that and understood that some of these meetings we had the entire executive board, all 9 members of the executive board sat in those meetings and they were a part of it. And even there was the membership. There were certain things such as MOUs, memorandums of understanding or
Hmm.
memorandums of agreement that the executive board had the power to vote up and sign up. And I campaigned on this, and I said, look, anything that comes before us, we're taking it to the membership. They don't have a vote, but they're going to have a voice. and it's going to be on the consensus of the membership. We'll go to every roll call, and that's what we did. And they're still doing that today. Go to every, what do y'all think about this? This is an issue that came up. We have to vote on it. There's a MOA that's coming into play, memorandum of understanding. The county wants us to sign this agreement. Do y'all agree with it or not? And you take the consensus of the membership, because they may not have a vote, but they have a voice. And you take that consensus back to the executive board, takes it back to the county, labor relations, say, hey, no, our membership is not for this, and we're not for this.
I think you're the way that the Wayne County Deputy Sheriff's Association operates breeds respect. And it's well known that you're taking care of business and you have the utmost respect for your members. Even when you stepped down because you knew you was retiring, you turned everything over to good hands.
Yes, sir.
Now, I do
I'm
want
proud
to,
of the
I do want
leadership
to,
today.
I want to move on to our next issue, which is, can you tell the citizens of Wayne County and the citizens of Detroit during 2020, during COVID-19, it was some testy times. Everybody was scared, but the public need to understand that first responders did not have the luxury of staying home. We had to get up and go to work, and we were afraid too that we were going to catch COVID. But there was some real significant issues that went down in the sheriff's department, especially with the current sheriff, Rafael Washington, and his behavior as it concerned the respect for two beloved deputies that died and passed away from COVID-19. The first officer that we lost was a corporal named Dean Savard. This is a picture of Corporal Dean Savard. He was a loved deputy within the sheriff's department. And we also lost another beloved member of the sheriff's department. His name was Donna Faye Collins. This is Mr. Donna Faye Collins. He was a commander of the Wayne County Sheriff's Department. And a lot of you might remember him from having a show on 92.3. He was a radio DJ, and he did the radio DJ stuff out of Nikki's Lounge. And a lot of people did not know that he was a police officer, but he was well loved and well liked in the community. And these two people died of COVID-19. Now, can you elaborate on real briefly on what went down and the disrespect that was shown to these two fine men of the Wayne County Sheriff's Department that died from COVID-19?
Okay, now, COVID-19 was it 2020, I believe, it came into existence. January 2020. I think it was March 11th. I was bedridden with COVID-19, along with then my second vice president,
myself included,
Corporal Cox. When I say I was bedridden, couldn't even, I've never been sick in my life. Couldn't get out the bed. I had to force myself to sit up and walk through the house just to keep my lungs, going, and to fight off COVID. During that time, could barely speak, but I had two cell phones in my bed. One was a union phone, the other was a personal cell phone. Stayed on the phone, all throughout the day, trying to get the PPE equipment, because the Wayne County didn't have any. They really didn't know what to do. So the union is the one. Wayne County Deputy Sheriff's Association, the union, that executive board, the elected officers are the ones that got the COVID-19 equipment into Wayne County, the PPE protection. That came from our activism. Stuff went out through the media, some of my statements. I said working in the jail, all our members, not only the inmates, the deputies, the employees in the Wayne County Jail didn't have any kind of equipment, and the county wasn't moving fast enough to get them some kind of protection and put policies into place so the members and everybody, inmates, could be protected from COVID-19. That we raised the issue in the media, and I used the phrase of "you're working on death row," which is true. You're working in Wayne County. Yeah, that went across the nation. We started getting PPE equipment as far away from California. People were donating. Some of the actors and celebrities were donating equipment to Wayne County. That came from our activism. Now, when Dean Savard, and bless his soul, I worked with that young man, that corporal. He was a great person. He cared about people. He succumbed and passed away to COVID-19. Also, I think prior to him, was Commander Donna Faye Collins.
Yeah.
And of course, the media wanted to say that he brought COVID into the jail. No, he got, in my opinion, he got COVID in the jail and took it out into the public because they were talking about, some party or something that he was the DJ and et cetera. Now, when it came time to, well, as you well know, when COVID hit, the governor shut everything down.
Right, I remember
You
that.
couldn't attend church, any funerals, anything like that, any type of gathering. So what I saw was and witnessed was everybody was doing private things, doing what they call drive-bys. Someone was in the house, they were sick, they drive by, come up to your house, blow their horns, wave. There was gatherings outside, birthday parties, all this stuff. They were in the house or in a facility, and people would just come to the window. They kept that social distancing. That shows so it was in play. People wore masks, and I saw all these drive-bys going on. So we, the Wayne County Deputy Sheriff's Association, said, well, we for Deans of Bar, we can't attend. We can't attend any church. We can't attend the funeral service. But what we'll do is we'll do a drive-by. We'll drive by his house. We'll honor him, and we'll organize it as a motorcade.
Right.
So we planned this, and I'm saying the we being the Wayne County Deputy Sheriff's Association, the executive board. We had the date of the drive-by, that Saturday, whatever that, I don't recall the date was. We talked to the sheriff. We got the mounted unit. We had some of our people that worked tether had the unmarked cars, which is county cars. They were okay to use them. So what happened was we were in a meeting, and with the sheriff, the executive board,
Sheriff Benny Napoleon.
Sheriff Benny Napoleon. Let me go back. Sheriff Benny Napoleon. We're in this meeting, and so we told them, we said, oh yeah, by the way, we're still doing this drive-by. And Saturday, they says, oh yeah, and they said, so well, what about Commander Donna Faye Collins? And I said, well, you know what? We can include him. I said he lives in the east part of the suburbs. I think it was somewhere up in Macomb County. We'll go by his place first, 12 o'clock in the morning,
right,
or 12, and then we'll go across town.
Sheriff Benny Napoleon was in agreement with this.
He was in agreement.
And he was
supportive of it. And he told then Deputy Sheriff Washington to get with me, and we work out the logistics of this. Now,
what happened?
The logistics were we had a mounted unit. We had the bag pipes because the union had a connection with the bag pipes and all that. They were going to march up, and we're going to drive up. And so 2 days prior to that Saturday or 3 days prior, they said, well, no, the sheriff's attorney checked and the governor, and she has this stay in place policy. You can't do this drive-by. And I said, we're doing it anyway. And he says, well, we're not going to, we're telling y'all can't do this. I said, I'm off duty. I'm the union president. And me and my members who are off duty are going to do this drive-by. Everybody else is doing it. I said, we want to honor and have a send-off for our member. And we wanted to do Donna Faye Collins, and we're still going to do
Ultimately, still, Benny Napoleon was still in support of this.
No. He kind of backed out of it
because of
the order from the governor.
I get that.
And we said we're gonna ask us. I tell you what, I'm gonna lead the procession. If we get stopped by the police and anything, I would tell them y'all arrest me first.
But let me fast forward.
Because we are doing this.
But let me fast forward. Did Benny ultimately agree to do it anyway with you?
No. What happened was that was like on a Tuesday when they said this. Then the command officers were telling the deputies throughout the workday, well, y'all can't do that because you can't do the drive-by. And they says, well, we're doing it anyway. Because I said we were going to do it, and we're going to do this. And I said, we're still going to
because everybody's
still going to do Commander Donna Faye Collins. So what happened that Saturday morning of our scheduled drive-by, it was about 9 o'clock. I looked on the news, locally on the news, DMC, that whole hospital medical center, they did a drive-by for the doctors and the nurses. Now, in that drive-by, you had the all sorts of law enforcement entities, from federal to state. You had helicopters from the state, the feds. I mean, you name it, they were in that drive. It probably was like 300 or 400
cars. But they were telling
cars.
The sheriff's department.
But they telling us we couldn't do that.
We couldn't do it. I remember.
But the hospital, I saw that. So I called. After it was off, I called then Chief of Jails, Robert Dunlop. I said, man, I don't know if you did did you see that on the news this morning? He says, what? And I explained to him what had occurred. And I said, well, you know, we're still doing our drive-by. I said, come Monday, I said, the news media come ask me something about it. I said, y'all gonna have a problem. That's what I told him. I said, so I'm done with it. Well, I'm not asking you to participate or the sheriff or anything like that. When he says, well, let me make a phone call. He called the sheriff. 30 minutes later, Chief Dunlap called me back, says it's on. I says, well, you know, you had to mobilize your people because they, you know, you told them everything was off. I said, we had to mount it and all these other units supposed to participate. So what happened within an hour, few hours, we had a staging area out in the suburbs to do the drive-by by Commander Donna Faye's house first. Okay. You know, we had the bagpipes out there, the monitor was brought out there, everybody was mobilized the last minute that could get out there. The deputy chiefs showed up, Sheriff Benny Napoleon, his chief of staff.
That's what I meant, that Benny
Michael
was
Turner,
in support of it.
Michael Turner, they all showed up.
They all showed up.
There was one person missing.
Who did not show up, Mr. Reginald Crawford?
Then Deputy Chief Rafael Ray Washington did not show up.
He did
because
not.
He had an attitude of angry because we didn't do it his way. We didn't counsel. We didn't.
Now, this is the sheriff that's running for Wayne County Sheriff this August in 2024.
Sheriff Rafael Ray Washington, that's currently running, did not show up to honor not only the commander, Donna Faye Collins, who was his commander of Jail Division 2. He didn't even show up to honor him. He did show up to honor our member, all because he had an attitude or was mad about the fact that we proceeded with this and he didn't want us to. He talked about doing something even bigger and better at a later date. And so we all, and it was the drive-by was beautiful, man. The send-off was beautiful.
I know it was beautiful. I was there.
I mean,
but I don't remember
we had
seeing
motorcycles, we had the mounted unit, we had the bagpipes from the staging area. They marched in and we did the mobile drive-by.
The sheriff of Wayne County was there.
Sheriff Napoleon got out his car at each location with his mask on, and we went up and presented, you know, the family with a flag.
This sheriff, Sheriff Rafael Washington, did not show respect to 2 officers fallen from COVID-19 because of an attitude.
That sheriff, the one that you had the picture of, Sheriff Rafael Washington, today and recently has said, or I guess a year ago said, don't nobody love you no more than I do. Talk about the deputies.
I do have that.
And how much love and respect he has for the deputies. But in the death of 2 fallen deputies, he didn't show up. And then ultimately, you know, may his soul rest in peace, Sheriff Benny Napoleon passed away.
I remember some
of COVID-19.
I remember some command officers were wondering where Rafael Washington was, and nobody knew. Now, you did say just now that ultimately Sheriff Benny Napoleon died from COVID-19.
Yes, sir.
Himself.
He came to work.
Yeah,
he came to work,
and he was sick.
He came to work. He was sick. He came to work. Sheriff Washington was missing in action for months.
Now,
during that COVID-19, didn't come to work.
Yeah,
over there in Division 2. But the deputies had to come to work every day.
Now, who are you speaking of? They didn't come to work.
Sheriff Rafael Washington did not come to work.
Sheriff Rafael Washington
did not come to work
for almost 2 months.
For a few months, he was missing. He checked out.
I was looking for him.
Yeah.
The union was looking for him, and I said in the previous segment in my video that he really was able to slide because of Benny being sick. Now, this is what I'm gonna say about our beloved Sheriff Benny Napoleon. Sheriff Rafael Washington crows about our beloved Sheriff Benny Napoleon being his mentor. Okay. Sheriff Rafael Washington disrespected and he turned on his mentor. Because while Benny Napoleon was in the hospital fighting for his life from COVID-19, the union and a lot of officers, we would do vigils out in the parking lot.
Yes. Yes.
Did we see Rafael Washington at any of those vigils at the hospital? No, we did not. It is believed, and we know, that Rafael Washington knew the process it took to appoint a new sheriff once a current sitting sheriff either steps down or passes away. I believe, and we know, that Rafael Washington was studying that process. It was almost like he was sitting, waiting on Benny Napoleon to die from COVID-19 so he could move in on his job. Now, if a person is your mentor, you don't care about a position, money, or a title. You want to be at your mentor's side all the way until the end. When Benny Napoleon was on his back fighting for his life, the executive staff, his daughter, and all the other people, we were doing rounds, going to the hospital and hoping that Benny would recover. He never did, but it's believed that this man who claims that Benny Napoleon was his mentor, Raphael Washington, was too busy trying to court the people who could give him the appointment for the sheriff, because the county charter says when a current sheriff steps down or passes away, the county only has 10 days to appoint a new sheriff. And that was Raphael Washington's focus on his mentor's job. Yeah. Now, this is the guy that's running for sheriff this August. This is the guy who's running for sheriff this August. Okay. And he was not by his mentor's side in his last days. He's busy buying suits, in my opinion, carrying on, trying to secure that position and those votes that he needed to get the appointment in 2022 to be the appointed sheriff until the election of 2022. That's my opinion. And that's the opinion of a lot of other people that I talk to. How can you trust a man or a person who was supposed to have a mentor and he's not at his mentor's side till the end? He's more concerned about the job, the uniform.
Well, that selection process, and that's what he wasn't elected, he was selected.
He was selected by that appointment.
Let me make it plain. Let me make it plain clear. There were 3 people involved in that process. You know, Wayne County Prosecutor Kim Worthy, Wayne County Clerk Kathy Garrett, Judge Burton,
Freddie Burton.
Freddie Burton. Those were the 3 that were available that had to make the selection per the county charter.
And they only had 10 days.
And 12 people were in that process, came before the union. I had the executive board, we got together and said, hey, you know what, y'all gonna do this. There's those who are candidates for the selection. We asked that they come before the union. So they came before the union. We're in that conference room. We interviewed all 12 individuals. Now, the union didn't endorse anyone for the presidency. We just said, well, we'll just leave it to the selection, because we weren't, and they were seeking our endorsement. All of them were seeking the union's
and there were some good candidates that had
there were some
applied.
good I
know
candidates
some of the candidates I can mention. Mr. Walter Epps, who ran against Raphael Washington in 2022.
Sir, Raphael Washington was the least qualified. And I'm being truthful
out of
here.
everybody.
Out of everyone. Out of the 12, he was
had a
the
police
least.
chief from Ann Arbor.
He was the least qualified.
He had a police chief from Ann Arbor.
But that was the selection.
Yeah.
And
that was the process.
That was
but I wanted to know.
that's who they selected.
Yeah.
And the union said, you could check that Zoom.
We're not going to go. One thing I'm not going to go into is the people, the 2 people who ultimately selected Raphael Washington. I believe that, I can't believe that they knew how he was going to turn out. That's my position, and I'm gonna stick to it. And he turned out to be horrible, and he's horrible now.
I want to believe. Well, at the time, I knew the history. I was from, remember, I'm from Detroit. I knew the history of all of them. I know their history. I knew their background. I knew what they were about. But upon this selection of the least most qualified person, which was Raphael Washington, the union, and you could check this Zoom from back then, years ago, we made a statement in the end. And I said, along with the executive board members that were in there, was Corporal Robin Hornbuckle, first vice president, second vice president, Alan Cox. We were part of that Zoom, and we chimed in the end and said, well, okay, well, congratulations. And we're going to try to work with him. We're going to try to work. And even after they turned the Zoom meeting ended, we said among ourselves, we're going to try to work with Sheriff Watt. That lasted all but.
I was getting ready to ask you, how long did that cooperation last?
1 month.
1 month.
See, I knew what we were dealing with, but I thought maybe there might be some change. But then I should have or known, and I still know today that if there's corruption, corruption trumps policy often, every time. If you're a part of a corrupt organization or you're corrupt at the top, corruption will trump policy. Policy, union contract, rules and regulations mean nothing.
Real
Because
briefly,
corruption trumps that.
can you give me at
And
least
that's what you have in the Wayne County
real
Sheriff
briefly,
Department
can you
today.
give me a couple things that were so outrageous that Sheriff Rafael Washington done after that 30 days of cooperation you had? Real briefly.
It wasn't 30 days of cooperation. It was 30 days of, it just of evolution of him reverting back to himself, and he just can't help himself. He can't
like
help
with
himself.
the sexual harassment lawsuit that everybody knows about. And if you go on my Facebook page under Frank Wood, you can read every page of that lawsuit.
Let me say this: the culture of disrespecting, yelling at people, lying to people, attacking folks, is that corruption exists today in the Sheriff's Department, and that's what we witnessed after about like I said, maybe 30 days of meetings and Zoom meetings, and dealing with then, or even now, Sheriff Rafael Washington. That's exactly what it is. Not knowing how to talk to people and just totally disrespecting people. And I'm not the one, brother. I'm not the one. I was built different. I grew up in a community that didn't tolerate anything like this. It's not in my, it's not in my DNA to tolerate anything like this. And I'm the one that will stand up and fight until the last breath of my body.
Now, when you ultimately stepped down, because you was your term up?
My term was up.
Okay, your term was up, and you didn't run again.
I didn't run again.
Now, can you explain how you were treated after your term was up and you went back from the union to the jail, ultimately all the way up until you retired?
My retirement date, my presidency ended December 31st. I had put in for my retirement for February 1st, Black History Month.
Okay, right on.
Black History Month. I said February 1st. Between June 1st and February 1st, right after New Year, I was gonna go back and work the jail. Now I didn't have to go back and work the jail. I had enough time to just stay off for the whole month. My union, particularly then second Vice President Alan Cox told me, says, don't go back to the jail. Some of those on the executive board say, don't go back to the jail and work, Crawford. I said, what are you talking about? They said, no, because they're going to come after you. I said, come after me.
Because of your union activism and the way you were.
That's what I said. They're going to come after me.
You were unbought.
Unbought. I said, they got it wrong, brother. I said, there's nothing that they could do to me that I can't handle.
But what happened?
What happened was I had bid for a job when I was, and this was according to the contract, even though I was assigned out to the union for 4 years, a job came up after I was there 2 years for the lobby desk, a permanent job bid, afternoon shift, to work the lobby desk in the lobby of Jail Division 1 as a corporal. So I bid for that job, won that bid, seniority job. I won that bid. So since I wasn't going back at the time, the job is held, but they bid that job out temporary to the next person. So there was a temporary bidded job for that job that I had bidded for until I came back.
So the contract says you go back to your bidded job, but the management did everything they wanted to do to try to keep you.
What management did was they lied. They said, coming from Sheriff Washington and Chief of Jails Dunlap, said I didn't have that bid. I never bid it for the job.
Now, by the way, you never bid it for it.
I never bid it for the job.
But you did bid for it.
I did bid for it. I had the documentation where I bid it for it.
The chief of jails and courts is this gentleman.
Not only
right here, Robert Dunlap. So you know who
they
you're
lied.
Talking about.
They lied.
He lied, and who else lied?
Sheriff Rafael Washington.
Again.
They lied. It was in the computer. It was in the computer system. Once everything that was generated about me, I keep a file of. So when I won that job bid, it's signed off on. They generated and it's it's in the system. So I printed that. I printed the bid sheet.
And they still did not want to give you your
right. And then they said, well, if he can prove it, then we'll give him the job then.
Who said that?
That's Sheriff Washington.
He lied again.
He lied again.
Okay.
So and they told the union. So the union filed a grievance. And even just the further evidence is that I bid for the job. It has the officer that was in the job temporary. They had his name on the bid sheet. Okay, he's bidding for the job that Crawford has. Okay, so then they lied about it. So because if I didn't have what they were trying
When you
to
say they lying about, you talking about
about
Robert Dunlap
then
and Sheriff Rafael
and
Washington.
Washington.
Lying
And
again.
yes, yes. And one of the commanders in the jail too was on that too, involved in all of this in all of this lying.
But we don't have a
So
dog in the fight with them.
no. So the issue is, I know they only have to do what they're told to do.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, is either you do what you're told to do, or you're a bootlicker. You know, you bow down and you buck dance to them. That's what you do, or do what you're told to do. So the issue is, they wanted to. So they're denying me this job. Now I sat on the desk a few days here and there, but then they told me, well, Crawford, you got to go up and work in the jail. You got to work the ward. You know, so people on the executive board said they try to kill him. You know,
now how would you say that they were trying to kill? Now COVID is still hot at this time,
they said they want to put this guy that's going to retire and actually only had about 21 days to work on the COVID ward because they call themselves want to punish him, but they actually try to kill him. This is exactly. I said no. They not.
You
mean
to tell me that they want to keep you out of your union bidded job, and it's obviously you're not a young man.
To put me on
you're an older man
on the ward and on the floors.
Not only that, they put you on a ward where it's actively COVID people in quarantine for COVID-19.
Right.
So they were trying to kill you, man.
That's what they say. That's what the union members, the executive board said. I thought it was kind of funny because I said, look, I said they don't know who they're dealing with. I said I got activism in my DNA. You know, they don't know what I've dealt with in my lifetime. You know, these people don't have the courage, you know, to deal with what I dealt with, or really the courage to stand up and go against me.
Does it appear that the sheriff's administration was trying to do anything right, or does it appear that they're just basically doing what they wanted?
They wanted to retaliate. This is the repercussions.
Because you were the active union president.
I stood up.
Yep.
Okay, I fought for the membership. I fought for what was right. Unbossed. I don't like bullies. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't like bullies. So ultimately, what I did was I said, okay, no problem. I got a bunch of sick time. I got a bunch of time. So in that 21-day period, I think I might have worked eight days because I took sick days. And they couldn't. I didn't have to go into the rotation because I wasn't going to be there for another month where I had to work weekends. So I had every weekend off, and I took those other days off. You had to get out. And I went to work some days.
Now, what did not happen once you retired?
Oh,
what was the challenge?
Now,
after you retired,
the second part of this retaliation, and it was so petty and so silly, and they weren't going to win. So they didn't give me my Wayne County deputy retirement ID. You know what happens is you retire, you get your ID.
I know the process.
And by the way, you have to be cleared and state the box has to be checked that you retired in good standing. It goes up to M codes. That goes up to M codes. It says, okay, Crawford retired in good standing. There was no discipline. There was no drugs. There was no violation of policy. He wasn't under any kind of criminal investigation throughout his career or prior to retiring. So what happened? They didn't get my ID. So I said, what's going on here? You know, a month went by, a few more weeks went by. So I went to the union. I said, hey, brother, I said, in order to get your retirement badge, you have to get your ID. You get your badge from the union. So you take your ID to the union on a Wednesday when there's union meeting, and they give you your badge and honor your retirement. But you have to present the ID. Didn't give me an ID. So I said, okay, no problem. So the union was filing a grievance. Actually, we were going to do a press conference too about it.
Yeah.
But this is that corrupt administration.
Because they were trying to punish you on the way out the door. So part of that process is a retired officer gets to purchase their service sidearm.
I found out that they even gave ID to the K9 dog. The K9 handler and his dog got ID, and the dog got a badge from the union. But they
a dog.
A K9
dog got his retirement badge and ID before a human being.
Yes. So finally, after the union threatened to not only actually they're going to take them all the way to arbitration, but finally I got the ID. It was, I think, a month and a half after my
I
retirement,
remember
something
that
like that.
day when you walked in.
I got that. That's right, brother.
Yeah,
You were,
I was
you were
working. I was
sitting
working the desk
right.
because Rafael Washington had kicked me out of the courts because I was supporting his opponent for Wayne County Sheriff,
Yeah.
which was Mr. Walter Epps in
Political
2022.
retaliation.
So they were coming after me just
Political.
for that.
Yep.
And the same thing that they did to Mr. Crawford, they did to me. They made me wait almost 3 months after I retired to get my retirement ID so I could get my retirement ID so I could go to the union and get my retirement badge and purchase my service sidearm, which I was able to do. And I do have the paperwork and everything to prove it that I retired in good standing. And they tried to pull another retaliatory issue, try to discredit me with the state of Michigan with MCO, trying to say that after I was retired, almost 3.5 months, that I didn't retire in good standing, but I had the paperwork and everything too. They didn't get, the state said they don't allow a do-over. And so I
And
still
you had
have
che-
the
they
paperwork.
had checked the
Oh,
box,
yeah,
signed the paperwork, sent it to MCOs,
yeah.
and then we kept
And
sending emails to you saying we got to do this
yeah,
over
we're not doing nothing over because
because
the union and my lawyer, and I'm still waiting. If they try anything, they're gonna be dealing
y'all
with
hear
some.
that.
They're gonna be dealing with some legal issues, and I don't think they want to see me
They
again
don't want to see us
down
again.
here getting a civil litigation against them.
See,
But that was dirty. You know, we were
but
never
brother,
involved in
and
criminal
and you
activity
told me
on the
about
job.
that was happening. We told you what to do. The union executive board told you what to do. We handled it.
Yep.
And the piece is when you fight, you win. When you fight, you win.
Yeah. And I found it real weird because Mr. Walter Epps was a very respected man. And he was just running for sheriff, and I was on his campaign team. And Washington found out because he saw me at, election campaign stuff in the community. And we were just having a conversation at work about who we were supporting. We wasn't campaigning at work like they were led
And your
to believe.
conversation was you were supporting Epps. The other person's
Was
conversation,
supporting
deputy,
Washington.
supporting Washington.
Yeah.
But they transferred you. They didn't transfer him.
That's right.
They didn't transfer him.
transfer.
So see, that shows you that
Yeah.
little weak, cowardly, political
Yeah.
attack
Yeah. Mr. Crawford,
and
we
repercussions.
covered a lot of stuff today. And we went past our 30 minutes. And
Yes.
but we're going to close talking about the current candidate for Wayne County Sheriff, which is Mrs. Joan Merriweather. This is Mrs. Joan Merriweather. And you can see on this flyer here, right here, this is Stevie Wonder. On this side. Okay, this is Stevie Wonder. She has the endorsement of Stevie Wonder for Wayne County Sheriff, and I'm gonna read it to you. You got my vote. You got my future in your hands. Sign, sealed, and deliver your vote for Joan Merriweather.
Right.
In person or absentee by Election Day, Tuesday, August 6th. And this is not a fake endorsement. She met with the man. His signature is on there to prove that he endorses her wholeheartedly. And again, if she's elected, she'll be the first female sheriff in the history of the Wayne County Sheriff's Department. And you've heard me say this before. Miss Joan Merriweather is a licensed helicopter pilot. She was the first female helicopter pilot, police helicopter pilot in the state of Michigan. And she was also the first helicopter pilot for the city of Detroit Police Department.
Black woman too.
This is her when she was promoted by Benny Napoleon to the rank of sergeant. She's everywhere she goes, she is well received.
On a personal note,
yes,
Joan Merriweather running for sheriff. She definitely has my endorsement. I've known Joan Merriweather for years. We worked the aviation unit together. We flew together.
I didn't know that you were.
Yes, I was an aviator. 7 years. My last, prior to retiring from the Detroit Police Department, my last 7 years.
Qualified and fine woman right here.
I worked
Joan Merriweather.
I worked with Joan Merriweather. We flew together. She was not only, she was a person with character, integrity, respect, knew how to talk to people, and she brought that into the sheriff's department. By the way, there were a few of us from Detroit that we worked and we learned and we trained under corporals like you Alan Cox, and Robin Hornbuckle,
Yeah.
and many others.
And I want to mention that
Michael
even to this day,
Jamerson.
there's officers that work in a lot of these enforcement units on the sheriff's department, and they have a lot of my reference material to help them do their paperwork. And I still get phone calls to this day because they were not only co-workers, but they were dear friends of mine. And I can walk downtown in any jail division, and officers recognize me and they respect me because I respect them back.
But
they do the
Corporal
same
Wood,
for
I
you.
just want to say again, man, I'm so thankful for those who took me under their wing. You know, and Joan Merriweather was there a couple years prior to me coming to the sheriff's department.
Yeah.
And her husband, Jerome Jenkins.
Mr. Jerome Jenkins.
He also worked the aviation unit.
Yeah.
But see,
her and her husband are both helicopter pilots.
Maxwell, myself, Joan Merriweather, Jerome Jenkins. I'm trying to think who else. God forbid, I forget. The husband, the candidate Merriweather. Anyone else who we were the few from Detroit that started in that sheriff's department. And it was an honor to work under the people who knew how to do the job and do the job right and taught us how to respect people. You know, I came in the door with respect because I worked the streets of Detroit. And like I said, I'm from the community of the community. So I know, you have to respect people, everyone, the employees, the inmates, respect among yourselves.
I hate to interrupt you, Mr. Crawford, but brother, we've been getting it in today. I want to close again with candidate Joan Merriweather. She is running for Wayne County Sheriff August 6th of this year. She needs your support. She is going to come in and she's not going to change everything that's bad in that department overnight. Let's just make that clear. She's going to have to fix a lot of stuff that the current Sheriff Rafael Washington messed up, ignored, and didn't take care of. And let it be known, each time that Sheriff Rafael Washington messed with us before we retired, she was at the jail as a sergeant supervisor to rescue us. Yeah. And she used us as a tool in her toolbox to get things done. And we did not have a problem taking direction and orders from a female supervisor. I never had a problem with that. And there's female supervisors working in the sheriff's department right now that will tell you Frank Wood and Reginald Crawford did not have a problem working under a woman.
And I can assure you, electing Joan Merriweather as the sheriff for Wayne County, she will definitely rid the department of the cronyism and corruption that exists today.
Man, you couldn't have said it any better, Mr. Reginald Crawford. And I'm glad to have you on my show. Well, it took me 2 months to track you down, and I want to thank you. And I want to thank the citizens of Wayne County, and I want to thank the citizens of Detroit and the surrounding counties. But more importantly, Wayne County voters, get out and support Joan Merriweather for sheriff, because we got a sheriff department that needs fixing. And no better person to do it than Mrs. Joan Merriweather.
And I want to thank you again for this opportunity. And it was an honor for me to wear my hat and my beard.
Man, thank you,
I don't
brother,
usually wear a beard,
representing today,
but I got to represent.
This
is what your show is about, keeping it real. This brother wears a hat, and he was wearing a beard. So I said, I'm gonna come with. I don't normally wear hats.
This is my segment, Just Keeping It Real. And you can find me on YouTube. At Just Keeping It Real at Wood Dog 4868. You got to put that in the search engine, and you'll find this segment on Facebook by the end of the day.
Brother, anytime there's an invite, I'm here to come out and
put
out some more truth.
Put out some more truth, and that's what we do, because keeping it real is the only thing I know how to do, and that's it. And I want to thank you, everyone. I love you.
Thank you.
Man, we tell that one up, bro.
55 minutes, but that's all right. They can break it up. They can break it up. There's a lot to cover.